Hello everybody and a very warm welcome. If you are watching this, maybe the YouTube algorithm brought you here, but it's more likely that you clicked the link below my latest episode of Hidden Jewels of Soul and Disco, where I featured Jimmy Briscoe and the Little Beavers, or Jimmy Briscoe and The Beavers, here with their debut album and here with their last album from 1977. They only did, unfortunately, 2 albums. I had the honor and privilege to talk to Jimmy on the phone a couple of years back. And for me, it was very important to let him tell you the story, his side of the story, and we're getting a great insight of how it was to be a group back in the 70s. And I can't thank Jimmy and his family enough for making this opportunity possible. And I'm hoping that you'll have all the enjoyment and excitement I had when I talked to Jimmy. And I'm wishing you guys a great listen. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine. Thank you very much. We are so happy to get a chance to talk to you.
Yes, so where do we start? At the beginning? Well, we started out in a little town called Cherry Hill, that's located in Baltimore, Maryland. And I lived in the east part of Baltimore when I was a kid. And we moved to Cherry Hill, and that's where I met the Little Beavers. But the group was called the Little Chips then. And then we started doing talent shows. And, I met one of the members, Robert Makins. He used to live right across the clothesline from me. Where we lived, our mothers would go out there and they hang clothes on the clothesline. This was like back in 60, 67, 68. And we, so Robbie and I met through our parents. And so one day, Robbie said he was going to this rehearsal. Would I like to go? So I went to my mother. I think I was about probably 10 or 11 at that time. And my mother said, yeah, okay. I guess she wanted me to have some friends. So we went to the rehearsal, and that's where I met Maurice Pulley. And he was like the manager or the coordinator for the group back then. And we walk in, and they were moving all the furniture up against the edges of the wall. And then these 4 other guys came out, and they started doing choreography to the Temptation song, one of the Temptation songs. And so then after a while, they stopped, and Maurice asked me, he said, can you sing? And I said, I'm not sure. And then he said, well, can you dance? I said, a little. And that's how we got started. That's how we met. And at that time in the group, it was Kevin Gillian, Tiny Schumann, Kevin Barnes, Robbie Makins, Maurice Pulley, and Jimmy Briscoe. It was 6 of us at that time. And then Tiny Schumann, he left the group, so that left us with 5. So we started doing talent shows in like the late 60s, like around 68, 69. And we went on to do this citywide talent show. We had all the big acts that were in Baltimore. And we came in first place. So we were introduced to the Apollo Theater. Well, we had a manager. His name was Ike Belton. He introduced us to this producer in New York. His name was Paul Kyser. And at this time, now the group had changed because the guy Kevin Gillian had left the group, and that's when we met Stanford Stansbury. And then it was Robbie Makins, Maurice Pulley, Stanford Stansbury, and Kevin Bond. So we went on to do talent shows, and we kept winning. And so we were invited to this nightclub that Al Green was performing at. And so we opened up for Al Green when he was making his comeback. And this producer, he was there. His name was Paul Kyser. So he talked to our manager, at the time was Ike Belton. We had three managers: Ike Belton, Kenneth Small, and Ronald Durant. So this guy Paul Kyser said after our first set, he said, "So what's going on with you guys?" Talking to us, and he said, "Would you guys like to come to New York and make a record?" Well, we didn't know that he was serious or not because everybody had kept telling us, "You guys are sounding nice. We're looking forward to working with you," and nobody would ever call us again. But this time, the guy Paul Kyser, he did call us, and so we shopped our music, and we ended up our first label we went with was a major deal, which was Atlantic Records, and that's where we did the remake of Frankie Lyman and the Teenagers, Why Do Fools Fall in Love, and with the flip side, we had a flip side hit, and that was Sugar Brown. So the song started getting a lot of airplay around the nation, and we ended up playing at the Apollo Theater, opening up for Stevie Wonder. And then from there, we went on to do albums and other songs, and we kept getting hit after hit. And so things were really working then. And Robert Makins, he had left the group. So then that's when we were introduced to Bobby Finch. And Bobby Finch came in the group. And at that time, now we're talking 1973, 74. And so he stayed in the group for a while, and we recorded, then the disco era came out. And when the disco music had came out, because we was a doo-wop group at that time doing R&B, similar to the Four Tops and Temptations, we were opening for all the groups, the Delphonics, Souldisco, Shy Lights, anybody that had hit records at that time. We were doing a lot of opening for them at concerts. So Bobby Finch had left the group because we started doing disco music. We had a disco hit called "Into the Milky Way" and "Living for Today," and the disco songs had really started taking off. So we started doing shows with like Gloria Gaynor, Donna Summers, just opening at different clubs. We went to Atlantic City and we joined up with this hit group called the Manhattans, and that's where we met Milton Faulkner. He got in the group and Bobby Finch left. So at that time when we was doing the disco music, then it started dying off for a lot of singer groups. So we ended up coming back in 1974, 75 with an R&B hit from the same producer, Paul Kyser. And he wrote this song, My Ebony Princess. And we had a lot of chart-moving songs on Billboard and Cashbox and Jet Magazine back in the day, but nothing never grew as fast and reached the top status on the charts. We went all the way up to, I think it was number 45 on the top 200, which was big. And then we almost made it to number 20. And everything was just moving really fast. And then after that, the group pretty much started tapering off, and we all started dismantling. Everybody went their own separate ways. And about 15 years ago, they started doing around the country. I don't know if you remember when all the groups started doing these oldie shows where you would all the old performers, because the R&B, the vinyl music, people had started missing those days, and rap music and stuff was really taking off, but then everybody started missing all the vinyl music, and they were giving a lot of oldie shows. So we performed again, but this time we had Tony Delaney, Maurice Pulley, Kevin Barnes, Jimmy Briscoe, and Milton Faulkner. So we went around, we did a 17-city tour, and then when that was over with, then everybody pretty much went their own ways. We all had kids, A lot of us got married. And now I'm here today talking to you. I really appreciate you taking out your busy time to do the interview on the long history of Jimmy Briscoe and the Beavers. I really appreciate it. And everybody that's listening to this, I want to say thank you for your long-lasting support. And we hope one day in the near future we can do another oldies show more based out of the country than only just in the where all of our fans are. And that's basically about it.
That's brilliant. What do you remember from your first recording session? How was it for you to be the first time in a studio?
It was amazing because I'd never seen a full 40-piece orchestra before in my life. I've only seen like a guitar player, bass player, drums, and a keyboard and percussion. But to go, when we did our first song with Atlantic Records, to go in and see all the musicians and be in a booth by yourself, and the mood that they would set the room so that you could sing a ballad, it was just really great. It was fantastic. It was a mind-blowing experience.
Could you decide what kind of material you wanted to record? Were you having some kind of influence when you recorded?
Sure. Back in the day, the Jackson 5 was like the biggest and the hottest thing in the country and in the world. And you know, we wanted to not imitate them, but that same kind of feeling that they had on the girls and just the music industry. We were looking for that, and we ended up getting something different, and it worked for us. It was a great mix to have that style of music because it was different from everybody else.
What do you remember most from the recording sessions? Is there a special memory you have, or some experience in the studio you had back then?
Oh yes, I remembered how they were long hours, and we weren't used to that because you rehearse the songs before you actually go in the studio. But once you get in the studio and you start working with all the different engineers and different style mics, and it was just a lot of hours. I mean, especially being a kid, we would get sleepy sometimes when we were working on an album. And I mean, you almost had breakfast, lunch, and dinner right there in the studio. So it was a lot of dedicated, hard work. And, when I did it, I was just a child. I started out like 11 years old when I started singing. And I think I was about somewhere almost a teenager when I recorded my first song.
Were you given demos to rehearse the songs you were supposed to be recording, or how can we imagine that?
Well, I had a really light voice like a girl. And so whenever I would sing, we would go to do an interview. Sometimes the people would say, well, where's the girl? And because I had a voice that was a tone that was called a tenor. But it had a falsetto quality to it. And so that made it different.
What's your favorite song from each album you recorded? You had in 1975 My Ebony Princess, and in 1977 the Jimmy Briscoe and The Beavers album. What are your favorite songs from it?
Together We'll Find a Way, My Ebony Princess, Into the Milky Way, I Only Feel This Way When I'm With You, I'll Care for You. They were some great songs. And I thought that Together We'll Find a Way, I thought that was going to be a really, really major hit. But it didn't make it. Yeah, my Ebony Princess. They were supposed to put Why Did Fools Fall in Love and Sugar Brown on that album, but I don't know why it was. I think they had some kind of problem with, when we did that, we went with another label with Pi Kappa, and I think Atlantic and Pi Kappa were going through something. That's why you didn't have, because that's a mixture of both eras on that album, the Ebony Princess album. And we were a really close family, though. I remember one time we were doing Together We'll Find a Way, and Robbie's mother had passed away. And it was just so sad to sing that song because, he had to leave. And so we had to they had a saying back then, the show must go on. And so we grew up and they were trying to make us tough enough to handle things like that. And it was really difficult that day trying to complete that session, knowing what had happened. And Robbie had to hurry up and rush home. And it was really sad. And it was tough. And I remember Stanford passed away about probably 6 years ago, and I think that pretty much took everything out of me because he was one of my best friends. They all were my brothers, but Stanford and I, we had a little personal bond, and because we would be performing, and sometimes people would get nervous and homesick, and he always knew how to clown and joke and make you feel at home. And when he passed away, all of those memories, I got to keep it together. That was the stuff that really broke me down. And I miss Stanford so much. Yep, excuse me, I'm sorry.
No problem. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. Thank you very much.
But the rest of the members, they look pretty good. They're still strong. We hadn't really performed for probably about 30 years now. So we always laugh at each other because now, we were like 10, 11 years old when we started out. Now everybody is Milton and I, we are 62. And Kevin is in his 50s. So we're pretty much, we're getting up there.
How did you feel the first time you heard yourself or the group on the radio? What song was that? Do you remember that?
Yes, that was a song called Sugar Brown. It was mind-blowing. Nervous. Me personally, myself, I can't answer for everybody else, but I couldn't wait for it to end just to see what the DJs would say, because back then, radio people had a different way they brought a song in and the way they ended a song. Because most of the songs in the beginning had like these long intros, and that would give the DJs time to do their little talking to introduce the song. And it just made me nervous because I've always wanted, people say don't listen to gossip, but I've always wanted to see how people accept. And the first time I went to school after the first song came out, it was totally different. Girls were asking for autographs, and it was a mind-blowing experience. It feels good to see people enjoy what you love and what you did with your hard practice and all the hours you put in. It was just a great feeling. It was different. Our lives had changed overnight once the record came out.
Why do you think the group didn't make it big?
Well, I think what happened to the group, the Jackson 5 were a really powerful act. And Jimmy Briscoe and the Beavers, they were an act from the East Coast, and they were from the West Coast. And we had such a large fan club, and we had girls. I mean, everywhere we would go, we had started opening up for a lot of the big acts, but then we started doing clubs and big vendors by ourselves, and we were packing them in. I mean, everywhere we went, every state we went to, we would sometimes had to do 2 and 3 and 4 nights just to give everybody a chance to see the group. And sometimes the club owners would have to have a daytime show for the teenagers because the adults were the only ones that, could afford to come out to the concert. So we had to do, we weren't an international group then. And so I kind of think that we were right there where the promoters had to go with, there was a lot of groups that had that same problem at that time. It was politics. If a group was really, really big like the Jacksons, you didn't want to have that feeling of competition, because some shows we would do, you didn't last long if you were taking the attention away from the headliners. So I think that was part of it, and management was also another thing. People would always try to dismantle groups, try to split groups up. But I don't know. I never really wanted the Jimmy Briscoe and the Beavers because I was so close to everybody as a kid. We were just the Beavers at first, but management changed that. And but I stayed with the group because what I saw and the quality that I saw in each of the performers, it was just mind-blowing. And it's hard to explain it unless you were actually there seeing how dedicated and how hard these guys work. So I never, like Lionel Richie went out solo. I watched him, on the side of the stage with the Commodores, and there was a lot of guys that went out solo, but I was asked by, back in the early 60s by Motown, some members, Berry Gordy's sister and Eddie Kendricks, the singer, was I interested in doing something? And I said no. I'm a group entertainer. I enjoyed the atmosphere of 5 guys pounding away and having a good time. And so it's tough. It was really tough coming up in those days. So a lot of that had a big part in keeping the group from really, really growing. And then we would get with some labels where we were caught up in contracts where the record companies would want to take us, and the management, they knew from the lawyers and stuff how to make sure we would be locked into their contract so that when the majors try to pull us away, the major labels, they would be locked in. And I guess they didn't want the management and the group. They just wanted the group. So it was a lot of things going on, I think. But we were just too young to really know the management and the business. You had to really, really know the business back in those days to really climb the charts. And some of the young groups had good management, and that was part of it.
The second album, which came out, had a pretty interesting cover picture. It was you guys walking around the street with dogs.
Yes, that was one scary day because a couple of us were not dog lovers, and we were afraid of them. And but these dogs were professional. They did movies and stuff like that. So the trainers, when they opened this van up and the dogs came out, we all were like, "Woo! What are we supposed we didn't know what was going to happen, but it ended up being a really good album shot that day. We were on the bridge in New York, and it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed doing that.
In 2013, there was a CD release with, I think, 13 unreleased tracks. Do you know about more unreleased tracks from your group? Because this is like a whole album you kind of seem to record it and never released.
Well, we did a couple songs. There are some songs that were not released on the album. And once the internet came out, a lot of songs came out that had been hidden. They called shelf songs. They were put on the shelf because some of the labels would pay for the recordings, but if it wasn't a signed deal, it stayed. It was one song that we did. Milton, Stanford, and I. When disco was out, the group was starting to die down, and so the same producer, he wanted to try an experiment. So he recorded a song with the three of us, and we were called the group Breeze. And we did one performance at a discotheque, and that song I haven't heard in years. I can't even remember the name of it. I mean, if I heard the song, I would be able to hum along with it, but I don't remember. This is really special, you doing this today, and I appreciate it.
Is there a final message to the fans, something you want to tell them?
I really, really appreciate their support, but I put it around to say it to everybody, but I know he's listening right now, and we all appreciate how you all accepted us being an individual and not mimicking the Jackson 5 or any of the groups of that era, and giving us a chance to be who we are. And that's something that all artists really, really hope and pray that they're accepted. So that's the biggest thing to the fans. Thank you for accepting us and giving us a chance to deliver our music the way that we wanted to. And I know we were different from a lot of the doo-wop groups, but that's about it. Thank you for being great supporters, and I hope to see you soon.